Malicious contamination, rare but nasty. In 2022, a restaurant chain in England began to find foreign objects in bulk dips and sauces they purchased from one supplier. The foreign objects included gloves, paper towels, metal ring pulls, and plastic bags. The restaurant chain reported it to their supplier, which investigated the complaints and reviewed CCTV footage from inside their factory. CCTV is closed-circuit television. They discovered a picker on the late shift, a man who was responsible for collecting and organising ingredients for the next day's production, was tampering with the ingredients and with containers of hummus and salad dressing. He also added fish sauce, sesame and chili sauce to dressings that were not supposed to contain them, creating a risk for allergic consumers. CCTV footage also showed him spitting into a tub of food. His actions created food safety risks and cost his employer thousands of pounds. Once investigators at the food manufacturing site realised they were facing a malicious contamination scenario, they contacted police who observed the man in CCTV footage in the act of contaminating food. He was arrested, questioned and admitted to intentionally adulterating food. Last week he was sentenced to 33 months in jail. The food manufacturer recalled or withdrew all affected batches promptly and was praised by local food safety officials for their swift response. A failure of the food safety system. Malicious contamination incidents like this are rare, but can pose serious threats to consumers and to the reputation of food companies. The detection of intentional contamination can be difficult because food safety systems are designed to prioritise accidental and naturally occurring contamination. For example, in this case, contamination with metal ring pulls was not caught by metal detectors because they were added post-production while the products were in a storage area, and so after the metal detection process. Systems for preventing and detecting malicious contamination events are known as food defence plans. Some people also call them TACCIP, Threat Assessment Critical Control Point plans. All major food safety management system standards, for example BRCGS, SQF and FSSC 22000 contain requirements for food defence plans, including threat assessments to identify threats from both internal and external actors and controls to mitigate risks. CCTV monitoring of food production and storage areas is a common feature of food defence plans. US food safety regulations include the intentional adulteration or IA rule, which is designed to prevent malicious contamination events that would have a large-scale public health impact. The food manufacturer in this story, Harvey and Brockles, their Worcestershire site, has been certified to BRCGS food standard with grade AA+ since at least 2018, so they would have been operating a compliant food defence plan at the time the contamination occurred. It seems their food defence plan did not work to prevent the initial contamination. This is probably because the perpetrator was a trusted employee who had access to sensitive products and areas. The perpetrator may have been suffering from an unanticipated mental health episode, as he was also charged with burglary after breaking into the house of a work colleague and stealing a pink hairbrush. Mitigating the threat of a trusted employee having a mental health episode is difficult, if not impossible. However, food companies should attempt to mitigate against disgruntled employee actions by investing in workplace culture improvements. Was this incident a failure of the BRCGS standards food defence requirements? The food defence plan on this site did not prevent the contamination incident. It did, however, succeed in limiting the scale of the contamination, and more importantly, it prevented consumers from being harmed. Consumers were protected because the food company responded quickly to complaints from the customer. The food company had CCTV in some sensitive areas of the facility. Timely access to recordings from CCTV footage was possible. That is, the recordings were retained and accessible. The food company acted swiftly to recall affected batches from commerce and quarantine affected batches that hadn't been dispatched yet. And police were contacted promptly so that robust evidence could be collected for prosecution and ensuring that the perpetrator could be prevented from returning to work. Since the incident, the food company has also invested in more CCTV cameras to cover more parts of their facility. Other actions the food company could consider relate to employee satisfaction, employee mental health, and workplace culture. Takeaways. Disgruntled employees and employees with mental health issues can act to maliciously contaminate food. Because such actions are difficult to predict and control, food defence plans may not always be successful at preventing contamination. However, a properly functioning food safety management system can mitigate harm if malicious contamination occurs by allowing for swift responses, successful investigations, using, for example, CCTV footage, and prompt and complete recalls. In short, a malicious contamination event or a food defence incident occurred at a site with AA+ grade BRCGS certification. The food site acted quickly when customers notified them of contamination. Affected food was promptly withdrawn and/or quarantined. The perpetrator was caught and successfully prosecuted. Contaminated food did not reach consumers. And as always, you will find the sources that I've used for this story at the links in the email and in the post online.